Hey there, Wargamers. Justin Painter here, and we're back with another episode of the tentatively named TNT Two Nerds Talking podcast. And in this and in this episode, I've got Austin with me, who is my boss here at Death Ray Designs, and I wanted him on here because it's free content because he works here with me and I work here for him. But also, I think it's an interesting story to see kind of what he has done in his life to get to where he is now. And a lot of you guys that I interact with on the internet, on our Discord, or in person at shows, you see what we do and you're like, you guys make games and make toys. How do you do that? Which seems kind of, I don't know, like a cliche question for nerds to ask, but like, weren't always doing this, and like seeing where he started and how we got here is kind of interesting, because if one like little pebble got thrown in the pond the right way, his career might have been on a very different trajectory. So this is awesome. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
All right, so getting started with the talk here today, we're going to talk about like your early years. So how did you first get into like wargaming, like childhood era stuff?
Okay.
If you did anything.
So I had a lot of experiences when I was younger with scale models, and none of them had anything to do with wargaming. Probably the first, I guess, type of miniatures that I ever saw were probably train sets. So I grew up the son of a preacher, and we spent a lot of time around a lot of old people in their homes, and a lot of the older men had like a train setup, like in their shed or something like that, and they were always just fascinating to me. Yeah. So I loved watching the train go around and just studying all the little details of the landscape and everything. Sometime later, I think I was probably, 8 or 9 maybe, I discovered that they made dollhouse kits. And, I'd seen tons of, dollhouses from my female cousins and my mother's old stuff still at her parents' house when we'd go visit them. And it was big and clunky and, just sort of a rudimentary, this is a house shape with a wall cut out so that you could put dolls in it, which is fine. But like there are kits that are more photorealistic, and I found out that those existed and said, I want to do that. I want to build some of those and do all the details, add the carpet, put the wiring in the walls, add little lights and light switches and do brickwork and stuff like that. I had a ton of fun with those. I think, at least for a few of them, I built them, sold them, took the money that I made from that, and just bought more kits and kept doing it. And then probably around 10 or 11, one of my friends, I was staying with him for a weekend, and he had gotten, I think it was both a D&D adventure thing. I don't remember the name of it, but it had a VHS tape with it. Nice. It had something to do with like the Scorpion King or something, not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Scorpion King, but like a cooler one. It's still bad CGI, but whatever.
Probably pretty good for the 90s.
I was like 10 or whatever. Yeah. It was great. So we played that, and it had some miniatures, and those were really cool. But he had also gotten, I think it was the second edition 40K starter box. It was the one with the, I think, 3-part Marines. It was like body, bolter, backpack.
Oh, yeah, because they were the snap fits where the hands were like this, and you just pushed in the bolter. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and they were all like
orcs
on one plane, and the orcs are probably like this.
It was the one.
And they had like the Genghis Khan hats.
Yeah. It was the one arm up with like an axe or something, and the other arm snapped onto the side and had a shooter. Yeah. We played with that a little bit, and I had at least some small amount of paint. He gave me one of the Space Marines, and I painted it very poorly and had a lot of fun. I had like no paint brushes. The first miniature that I ever really painted for 40K, I think I painted it with some gold enamel paint and like a toothpick that I like frayed up enough to be a brush. Wow. Like I was just sort of like poking details onto it. Anyway, so after that, let's see, what was the next thing? I guess D&D, getting really into D&D, and I was DMing for our group. I made tons of like little homebrew terrain things and homebrew adventure packets and things. This was in 3rd edition. So it was third, and then 3.5 happened kind of in the middle of my, like, I guess middle school, high school years. And painted up tons of miniatures, found a local game shop that had a whole bunch of those old crappy third-party supplements that were just like 8 pages long and like weirdly narrow, like they were a pamphlet or something. But it was all like the prestige classes and stuff. I ate all that stuff up. And then it really wasn't until I got to college that I actually started playing like war games because I finally had some money. You know, I didn't have a job all through high school. You know, I wasn't allowed to go out and get a job really, and I wasn't really that interested in it.
You were still doing, that was back when you were still doing more like church stuff, yeah? You guys are very active in the church.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that was
also almost like a job, just not getting paid.
Yeah. I was pretty involved with church life and school. Yeah. I also skateboarded and played lacrosse, and I was constantly busy with something.
Stereotypical skateboarder, like not like he tried skateboarding. Like I've heard stories of jumping off of like little metal building thingy-majigs you talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I did dumb stuff. Yeah. I did a lot of dumb stuff, and I'm lucky to have both of my legs still working.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess that's really the next step. Is I got into 40K. Actually, that's not true. I got into 40K kind of as a sideway gateway to get into War Machine. Actually, I saw War Machine and really liked it, but noticed that no one was playing it really, and everybody was playing 40K. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna play 40K because I can get games in and I can befriend people at the game store, and then eventually sort of convince them, hey, play this other game with me too. So I did that.
You do.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to convert 40K players to try something different. That's still true today.
Yeah. It's easier than ever, I feel like.
There's no shortage of 40K players.
Yeah, and no shortage of other games to try. Yeah. So played 40K, played Tau, played Imperial Guard. Ended up with a massive collection of Imperial Guard. I think I had like 10,000 points of Guard at one point. It was a troubling number of tanks. Yeah. And played Khador, kind of ended up burning out on both of them eventually. You know, by the time I got to the end of my college career, it was probably a couple of years after that it took me to like get back to even wanting to do anything miniatures wise. At which point I kind of redoubled my efforts and said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want to do like a high skilled version of this as opposed to just, you know, I'm gonna buy some miniatures, I'm gonna slap them together, I'm gonna throw a halfway decent paint job on them, and you know, put them on the table. I'd rather get more out of the hobby aspect of it. Yeah. So, in an attempt to learn most of the techniques that I learned, I was like, what better way to learn a technique than to have to teach someone else? So I started making YouTube videos.
So a slight segue on that one. So two things. A, when I started working for you in 2012, you had already kind of departed from War Machine.
Yep.
Adam and other guy's name, Justin? Other Justin?
Oh, yeah, Justin Fisher, yeah.
Yeah, Justin Fisher. Those were the two that were still kind of doing War Machine, but it was kind of on the tail end. And when he moved, it kind of just, nothing was happening. Yeah. Because I feel like he was the push. He was like the Asa of War Machine, whereas Asa was Infinity. So like you were already on like trailing off into doing other things at the time. But I think it's interesting that we're going into the film part of this because you went to school for film.
I did.
And I think that might be interesting to talk about because you started out doing hobby creator things as a kid. What might have led to your interest in film as an education?
Well, so my education post high school took a couple of weird twists and turns. I went to a local private college my first year out of high school. I had intended to do the pre-med track and then study to be a medical examiner, but it did not work out. It wasn't even necessarily about the grades. It was more about my peers and just not getting along with many of them and thinking to myself, if these are the peers I'm going to have for the rest of my life in this career, I think I'd rather do something else. Yep. And granted, in hindsight, it was a very small subset, and you can move around and find people you want to work with, but it rubbed me the wrong way, and I also had friends who were doing more creative things, and I was drawn to that, so I went and joined them.
Sometimes it's probably healthy to follow your gut. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think it was a terrible, crazy decision. Being a doctor would be good, but like
Yeah.
this could have been a path where if you had gone the doctor route, maybe you made more money, but you were miserable. Now
Sure.
you're making decent money and you enjoy what you do. And I think like enjoyment probably offsets money in some cases as long as your basic bills are paid. So.
Yeah, I mean, the bills are paid right now. I'm not a millionaire, but, you know.
One day, if someone wants to invest in DRD and our IPs, we would love to grow.
So I did that for a year, and then I went to a state school where some of my other friends were doing, film school, and I joined them and had a lot of fun. I also worked for the school at the time in IT and continued to do that for years and years after I graduated, and up until very recently, that was like, I was sort of double careering it. But what was it, like a year and a half ago, I left the university.
Yeah, almost 2 years, yep.
And just did DRD. I mean, terrifying and not exactly intentional experience, but here we are. We're doing it.
So in film school, a couple of things that I wanted to kind of address.
Mm-hmm.
So you went, and I think you said your focus was kind of on like the prop creation side?
Yeah, it was. It was. Thanks for keeping me on track there.
Yeah.
No,
Trying to get the threads to what we do.
yeah. So I focused a lot on prop building and set building and lighting. It was a lot of the practical stuff. I really thrived on the technical pieces. I was also, I think, the last class in my school to actually have to do all the chemistry for film development.
Yep. Physical media. Yeah.
Which was neat, but in hindsight, I'm like, I had to scrimp and
Expensive.
scrape thousands of dollars every semester that I had a practicum to actually shoot film and have it developed and send it through the telecine process, and then finally get back a digital product that I could edit. I think some of that was also, a small piece feeding into my desire to make scale models.
Yeah.
And then once I graduated, part of why I started the aforementioned YouTube channel.
Yep. Brush for hire at the time.
Yeah, it was Brush for Hire. Was because I was like, this is a thing that I could do with my degree. I didn't expect to make any money off of it. It was just more or less like an ancillary part of my hobby time. I wanted to learn the skills for painting and hobby stuff well enough to teach other people. I also didn't really have a lot of friends at the time that were doing hobby things. So it was kind of a way to, from home, reach out and create a community and have people to talk to about the stuff that I was interested in.
It was a good lightning in a bottle moment, too, in terms of YouTube, because back at that time, because Brush for Hire, Dawson will probably get into this some as well, the tutorials he was doing on YouTube ended up catching the eye of Mini Wargaming in some capacity, and then Wargame Consortium when that was the thing. And he started doing stuff for Mini Wargaming proper. But at this time on YouTube, it was kind of the early days, the Wild Wild West of YouTube channels, where like you could actually like stand out. Yeah. So you Brush for Hire, that was a channel, and when you guys would go to cons, people would recognize who you were. But there weren't many painting channels at the time, because I know you used to have me watch this guy who had a really interesting accent. Was it By Painted, I think?
Yeah.
And he had some really good videos. Some guy from Europe somewhere, which was really cool. And then awesome paint job for Lester Bursley. I followed him. And then I think there was Girl Painting who was doing stuff, British lady. But that's the three I could think of. She's still doing stuff today, but it never like went up.
Yeah.
She was kind of like almost like a
I bet that she's doing some like Patreon stuff.
That's probably true.
She's probably doing pretty well at this point. There's a lot of avenues for established creators to make some decent money. I think at the time, I'm thinking of who else I was watching back then. There was Warboss Tay. I don't think he's done anything in a long time. He did a lot of cool paint jobs. Blue
Table.
Yeah, Blue Table.
Forgot about that, Sean.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can't forget about Blue Table. They still prolific video producers. They pump out a lot of stuff. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, I see that you can, in fact, run a business doing commission painting, and in retrospect, with, no offense to Blue Table Painting, but I think at the time, I always thought, man, these are really subpar paint jobs. But doing commission painting for a long time, it's like, okay, to make it profitable, like you have to sell something that is a reasonable product.
Yes.
Your customer has to be paying something that is commensurate with the level of effort. And because I was looking at it from the perspective of, I'm an artist, I want to make the best thing I can, I didn't respect at the time the necessity for saying, okay, you have paid me $100 to paint these models. I can only spend $100 worth of time on them. And as long as you and the client are in agreement on that, it doesn't matter what other people think of the finished product as long as both of you are happy with the payment and the product.
I struggle with that a lot because obviously where this conversation slightly goes is Austin picked me up in 2012 to expand the commission painting side of it. That's the thing that I struggled with up until I quit. Was this is my skill set can do this. People want to pay me to do this, but then they want that. And if they don't get that, they complain. And like trying to make sure that the customer understands what they're paying for and what they're going to get is hard. And as an artist, like I got to a point where I was burning out where like I don't want to paint the basic tabletop stuff because I feel like I'm not growing. And not many people want to pay you for the art. They want to pay you for the tabletop like one place. Like finding that balance can be hard.
I think that the other thing that is maybe an advantage for Blue Table in that sort of situation is that, you know, when people come to you for a paint job, they expect you to be doing the paint job. They want the thing that they know they've seen you paint. Whereas Blue Table, you don't necessarily know. I mean, maybe it could have changed, but like a company like Blue Table, you may not know the exact artist that you're.
It's kind of like a big studio.
You've got this sort of anonymizing screen between your artists and your clients, and it's a lot easier just to say like, this is the level of quality you'll be getting. There's no expectation that you're getting a Justin Hall paint job or a Lester Bursley paint job. You know, I think that works to their advantage and to the advantage of anyone doing that kind of like group studio sort of work.
Yeah, there's I'm not sure if Dark Bunny's still doing stuff. I know that I feel like they might have slowed down, but I know like Den of Imagination does a lot of work. Same thing, huge group of artists, but there are a few areas with them in particular that I know if you are booking a commission, like I want this thing hyper detailed with this freehand, you probably know the artist you're going to get because they have like a guy who does it. But if you submit like, I just want like this basic tabletop thing, you have no idea who's doing it. But you've seen the quality of the work and you know what you're getting. But I think for both of those, or all those examples with studios, it's economy of scale. They have a lot of people. When we were doing it, you brought me in doing commissions, and then you were focused on other stuff, and then it was just me. And when I needed overflow, we had you. But it was like, for this to be profitable, we need like 10 people, and it wasn't practical.
I mean, we sort of gave up the ghost on commission painting. What was it in 20?
I officially stepped away. I officially stepped away from me in like 18. I think Brush for Hire might have been 16 because I was pushing hard on the Twitch content creation side, and then I got to a point where I was like, you know, I don't mind saying it on the channel, like making sub 20K a year, working 60 hours a week painting models. After doing that for 6 years straight, I was just like, I'll wash my hands of this situation. We're done. It was awful.
It's like, you know, you got jobs that you can't afford to walk away from. This is a job you can't afford to do. You know?
And then if I'm honest, like I still like painting today, but like my physical body, which is really weird, was taking a toll. So like the way that I would paint, and I still do this today, but I'll hunch over, I brace my arms on my legs, and I lean forward. And then you go to get up after 12 hours, you know, I still got 4 more to go. And then you just go to stand up and you're like, oh shit. And now you fast forward some time, and if I'm done a long session of painting at home and I do that, I'm like, oh shit, and I'm dying. And I'm like, how would I ever do that when I was like 26 years old or however old I was? And it's
because
like,
you weren't an old ass man yet.
And now I'm to the point where I'm like, oh, and then now like then I'm like, I'm hyper focused on this face, and now I'm like hyper focused on the face. I'm like,
get the eye strain.
No, don't go out on me. So like looking at the details, I'm starting to see where I'm having a harder time focusing because getting old. And then if I'm painting in a long session like that, I can tell when I've got eye strain and fatigue. When I go to focus, there's a wobble. And like it's not the model, it's my eye straining to focus and it's shaking. And then at that point, I got to put it down. So like,
time to call it a day.
Doing that level of painting every day in my youth, like probably has some like damage that's been done to me at this point.
I don't know if it's necessarily long-standing damage, but like
I wouldn't go for my eyeballs.
You can't maintain it like you used to.
No.
Oh, excuse me. So where were we? What were we talking about?
So that was the segue into you taking those skills to do tutorials, and we didn't get to the like mini war gaming side of any of that.
So at some point, it wasn't that long after I started doing it. It was probably within 6 months. I put out a good handful of videos, and I was following mini wargaming pretty closely at the time. They were and still are a big player in the realm of wargaming content creation. And
this is also back when they did more than just GWIP.
Yeah.
They were a much broader net. Now they're very hyper focused GW.
Yeah, but anyway, they put out the call and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to help make content for the Vault. We're starting a Vault thing. It's a paid, video content service." And I said, "I can help, maybe."
This is kind of like Patreon before Patreon.
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of a proto Patreon type affair, and there were people who were up in arms about it, but they put out a ton of content. For every battle report that they had for free, there was a battle report. In the Vault, or at least a post-show thing where you had people breaking down the game and talking about what I should have done and what I would have done differently if I did it again, which was a really clever thing to do at the time. It was very ahead of its time, considering what we see now. But they said, "Yeah, hey, we like the stuff that you're doing. Come make some videos for us." So I worked sort of remotely alongside Chris Bello for a couple of years making content, and when they decided to bring the rest of the content creation in-house, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna have to cut you loose, because unless you're basically moving up here to Ontario, we're gonna keep it locally produced." So I was like, "Okay, sure." And David offered, "Hey, you've done a little bit of commission painting. Would you want to do more of that?" And they put out the call to, help me grow my channel and all that stuff. So they really helped give me a leg up on commission painting. And, probably like a year later, I was like, I've got enough work. I could use some help. And Dave put out the call for like, "Hey, if somebody in the North Carolina, Greensboro area is interested in doing commission painting, reach out to this email address." And I got an email from this guy.
Yep. The fun thing about that is the way that the email or the Facebook post was for that. It wasn't immediately obvious it was North Carolina, right? So a buddy of mine that I was playing Warhammer with like 2 days a week was like, "Justin, oh, look at this thing Mini War Gaming posted." And I look at the post, I was like, "Hey, man, that'd be real cool. I'd love to do some painting. That'd be great, but they're in Canada." And I keep reading, I was like, "Oh, shit. This is North Carolina. Yeah, well, it'd be nice if I was nearby." And I keep reading, I was like, "Oh, it's in Greensboro." Email. And then I did a job interview with Toys at a Panera Bread.
Yep.
So yeah, that happened.
Yeah. But yeah, Justin came on, did commission painting with me for a while, and then did commission painting on his own after I decided to sort of step away from commission painting. It was one of those where like, I'm bringing in jobs, and the company gets a cut, and Justin gets the more cut, whatever. But then it finally got to a point where it's like, "Hey, you're really the only one doing this. Like, let me just hand that part of the company to you." He continued doing that for a little bit, and then I think you hit the like, "I'm done" point. A year or two later.
Yeah, so I've used this example a lot, and I'll still share it because people who want to get commissions done should understand what you're asking for. There is only so many times you can get an email or Facebook message from someone who's like, "I'd like to get this commission done. I want 50 Space Marines for $50. I need you to buy the Space Marines and build them." And then I was like, "There's only 10 in a box, and a box is $40. What?" And then you go through this process, and they're like, "This is what's going to cost." And then they go, "Well, my buddy will do it for $3 a Space Marine."
You better get your buddy to do it.
I've literally said that. You better jump on that, because he ain't going to be doing it long. And that sounds a little catty, but that's what I dealt with constantly, where every time you give someone a quote, probably 80% of the time, either you don't hear back, or they're like, "Well, I have a buddy who'll do it cheaper. We'll get him to do it." And it's like, when I talk to people about doing commissions, I always tell them, like, charge your worth. So for like my endeavors today with doing Battletech stuff, CSO painting and whatnot, I have a few of my friends who got in, and they put models on Etsy, and they charge like $30 a model, and the things sell in 2 minutes. And I was like, stop doing that. Like, unless you just want to paint stuff to sell it for the money, cool, but like, you need to value your work where it should be. And then if you put something and you charge too much and it never sells, then adjust your price. But like, I think a lot of people getting to the commission side of things or trying to sell or market themselves, they sell themselves short. And like, no matter what happens in life, you are supposed to be your own advocate and like set a value that you feel good with, not just the one that you think people want, but like the one that you would want to get paid.
Yeah.
And when it comes to commission painting, I just got tired of people that didn't want to pay me what I felt I was worth. And obviously my pay, given the amount of time I was put into it, just wasn't practical.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we do more normal, traditional work here at GRD, and it's a more practical living.
Yeah.
We
work reasonable hours,
Yeah.
and we get reasonable pay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so going back to touch on a few of the things before we move on, do you have an experience early on doing like a minis painting thing or a specific like terrain project that really stands out that like, this is the thing, if you wanted to tell people like, this was the moment where I knew I really like this. Is there something you did that you like?
That's a good question.
This could go either way. This could be wargaming, or you could have been like, this one building I did, like this was the one where I knew this is the hobby for me.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I felt like I knew pretty early on. I mean, even when I was a kid, looking at those train model layouts and seeing all the interesting, cool little miniatures and scenery and stuff, I don't know. I felt like there was always a thing that I wanted to try to do. I'm trying to think if there's something maybe that was like a moment where it's like, oh, I could actually do this. I guess maybe. Or
just a project, you just like this one project, I really like this thing. It's like if someone asks me about my painting, this one thing stands out to me. Maybe that doesn't have to be early, because some of the stuff that I think of that you've done, because we didn't talk about cosplay, we didn't get there, but like he's done some props, like you helped do that, was it Prince Robot Head or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's pretty astounding project.
So, that's a pretty good example. I like making stuff. Yeah. Just making
He's a maker.
Things. Yeah. Whether it's, building and painting miniatures or making props or, doing, house construction, whatever it is. I like taking things and making something out of it. I think that the Prince Robot Head is a pretty good example of the like, wow, that's actually pretty astonishing that came together.
Like so many different things that went into making that, like from the electronic side to like the fabrication of it, like all the skills coming together.
I'll tell you what, if you're watching this or listening to it later, pause for a second, do a Google search, just do Prince Robot cosplay, and check out some of those. A lot of those pictures are going to be of the build that I worked on.
You might also be able to check out Contagious Costuming on Instagram. I think Caitlin might have pictures of that halfway down her feed or so.
Yeah. So my buddy Mike, who I went to film school with, he and his wife are big into cosplay and just cosplay convention nerd stuff. She's also in the film industry, and a long time ago at this point, he wanted to do a Prince Robot costume, which is from the comic book Saga. And it is a very difficult build because you're essentially building what is a CRT monitor that has to go on someone's head. And it's relatively small. It's like the size of like, I don't know, maybe like a largish motorcycle helmet. Like there's not a lot of room in it for electronic components, but you have to build a screen into the front, which we did with, I think it was just an old, very small LCD screen from like an LED monitor.
Yeah, because you could put in, however you set it up, that screen, if I recall, had like a USB or SD thing where like it could cycle images or video clips.
It sure did. Yeah, there were video clips and images that it would play on a loop while he walked around on the convention floor. We also put a doorbell camera with a tiny doorbell screen on the inside so he could actually see out a little bit. And there was, vacuforming, resin casting, electronics. We broke the electronic doorbell mechanism in that 3 times. Broke it, threw it away, broke it, threw it away, broke it. Oh no, the third one worked, fortunately. We were running out of time. We did this whole build in 3 days. And it is probably one of the cooler props that I ever had a chance to make. It was also part of the proposal for when he proposed to his wife. So like that's extra special cool.
So on the proposal thing, I was hoping he was going to get there. So on the screen, he had like the images of the little movie things that would play little clips, and then if I recall, like almost like a glitch as it changed between them, like a TV screen. I believe on that one, you guys at some point loaded the different thing, and the proposal popped up on the screen while his wife saw it, and it was like super like in the moment, like probably not expecting that to happen. It's wild.
Yeah, because she was essentially his handler for when he had the helmet on. He could see out a little bit, but not enough to walk around blind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very, very cool prop with a very cool story.
Yeah. Yeah, and like a lifelong story at this point because they're still together. So that's pretty interesting.
And on top of that, the photos of that build reached the authors of that comic book, and they ended up sending Mike and Caitlin some like hand-drawn stuff, like basically a hand-drawn version of them with the costume and everything. It was very cool.
I didn't know that. That's pretty sick.
Yeah,
pretty
like that costume actually ended up in a compilation of costume competition stuff in the back of one of the issues.
That's pretty neat.
That was very, very cool.
Pretty neat. So you mentioned you like to make things, and I use the term maker. So there's two things I want to go into that. So first off, a little bit of family for a moment, because technically I was thinking about some of my write-overs, like what are things we could talk about in this little segment? And I was like, I've met 3 generations of Thompson at this point. So I met your grandfather, your dad, and you. Yep. And I felt like your grandfather did a lot in the like theater arts realm.
He did.
Your dad did a lot in like the wood crafting stuff.
Yep.
And you've done kind of a little bit of all that at once.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's an influence of them as like a generational thing, like things passed down
absolutely.
or engagement?
Yeah, I mean, everything from just exposing me to movies and film and TV shows that are worth watching and talking about it from the perspective of art and the technical aspects of those productions. My grandfather was big into theater. He was a theater director.
Didn't you help do some prop creation for them? Because there's a story you told me about the smell of barge glue, bringing back some memories.
Yeah, so one summer when I was staying with my grandparents out in Dallas, family friend Irene Corey, you may know her work on Barney, but before she created Barney, she was...
So she created Barney?
Yeah.
I love that little purple turd when I was a kid, man. I had the little doll with the stuffed animal that played the I Love You song.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit it, like, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild.
Yeah. So Irene Corey designed and made Barney. Her studio was responsible for making all the Barney costumes. And before that, she was an absolute juggernaut in the realm of theater and developing new and still relevant to today techniques for certain types of costumes and makeup on stage. She's done some really amazing stuff. She has since passed, but her niece was the one running her studio by that point. And I had the opportunity to work in their studio on an internship over a summer where I made a few different costumes for them and worked on some, various foam suit kind of stuff. The thing that I was working on were the giant green numbers that were used as suits in the Dallas lottery commercials. And we used a ton of barge glue, and it was awful and stinky. But I also got to see a lot of the other stuff they were working on. Like they had, various states of assembly, like Barney costumes and other costumes that are sort of like that for various shows or on ice productions or what have you. But yeah, that was a really cool experience that I got a chance to have because my grandfather knew her and worked with her, back in the theater days. Dad, he does a lot of fine woodworking stuff, just general handyman kind of things too. He currently runs a business making mostly chancel furniture, which, he was a preacher through my entire childhood, and then he ended up leaving the church and doing woodworking. I like to tell him he pulled a reverse Jesus. He went from being a preacher to a carpenter. But
That's funny.
Yeah, he's done some amazing work, and I think that not only was were the things that he was making interesting to me. The tools that he was using were interesting to me, but the notion of that level of entrepreneurial motivation was also interesting to me. I don't think that he knew at the time that he was essentially laying the foundation for me to say, yeah, I could just go out and make a job for myself. I even had a recent conversation with him where he had commented on how I was the entrepreneur of the family, and I was like, well, I learned it from watching you do the same stuff, just albeit different types of things that you were doing. But
the thing I think is interesting is there's a quote from Bob Ross I like. I used it yesterday in one of the films too. And it was like, talent's a pursuit, interest, anything you're willing to practice you can do. But some people are just naturally gifted with things. So like one of the things that I gravitated towards with art is that like if I'm willing to practice this, I can get good at it. But then I look at some of the stuff you do, which not that there hasn't been practice, but sometimes you just pick up a thing and you just do it. And I think some of the foundations as like a kid probably helped in things you've done, but also like you've got like some internal flame of like, I'm going to create shit.
yeah,
And you just do it. But some people like myself have to compensate by practicing. But you just do things, which is fascinating to me. You just walk in and be like, I'm going to make this thing. Or maybe if I was to like boil that down a little bit, maybe it's just you're not afraid to try something, fail at it, and do it again. Like because you just make stuff.
I mean, that's also, like, I think that there was sort of an aha moment when I was working for the university when it came to computers. Like, I did a lot of just computer repair stuff. And there came a point where I was like, there's almost nothing that I could do to a computer aside from, like, take a hammer to it that I couldn't fix. So it's like I was no longer afraid to just try something. It's like worst case scenario, it's like, okay, we're going to reformat, we're going to reload, the standard image back onto it and start over and restore data and all that stuff. It's like I could try anything and know that I could fix it. And I feel like that's kind of the same place that I got to with a lot of hobby things where it's like, yeah, there's occasionally a project that I've just like absolutely messed up. But like more times than not, like I know enough of what I'm doing not to mess it up so bad it can't be fixed.
And some of that comes with experience, and some of that's just like being born with some natural amount of gift. So as we segue away from the maker thing, I want to bring up one thing because I think it's really good, and I'll allow you to mention it. But like in the maker space, you have an idol. Who is that and why?
Oh, I mean, easily Adam Savage. Like we've talked about this so many times. But
obviously off camera, but like
sure, But I mean, Adam Savage, from his earlier stuff. That at least I saw on MythBusters, and then learning more and more about his even earlier career.
Because he worked at ILM, right?
He worked for ILM, and he's worked on tons of really interesting projects. He worked on, I think, some of the second trilogy, the episode 1, 2, 3 for Star Wars.
Grant did R2 during that, right? I'm pretty sure there's photos of him.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Because like I knew at least two of the MythBusters had done stuff on Star Wars at some point, and I didn't know that till after Grant died. I saw pictures of him with the R2.
But yeah, I mean, and just all the weird special effects stuff that he did with Jamie Hyneman over the years, and now with him essentially being on his own YouTube channel, Tested. I know it started off as something else. It was Norm and I can't remember the other guy's name now, but one of the original founders left at some point to go do VR stuff, and more or less Adam Savage like bought the channel, and Norm still does all kinds of stuff with him, and it's just a lovely place to learn and talk about making things.
The things with Adam Savage, when I happen to throw on a YouTube video that I watch that are interesting to me, is the number of things he does or uses that we also have. Some of them we have the more entry level. Some of them we have the exact same equipment. But one of the things that's interesting is, do you happen to remember what his nickname was? I don't, but it had something to do with lasers.
Yeah, I think that back when he was working on, I want to say it was one of the Matrix movies, his nickname was Laser Boy. Because he did laser cutting stuff. Like that was his whole thing. He would design parts in Rhino and laser cut, wood or acrylic parts, and like I didn't know about that until long after we started laser cutting things. So
I find that fascinating. But the thing that I think is beyond the maker thing, that the thing that's probably the most interesting about Adam Savage and the stuff he has done in relation to what we do is the practical effects. Like everything he's making, like little greeblies. So when he's using a laser stuff, he might make an agreeable that's on the side of a building that you're seeing on a giant projected screen at a theater, but it's this big, right? And like, they're making the set. So we go and watch things like the new Blade Runner, where they made like the whatever scale that you could walk through city, but like it's small. But when they film that kind of stuff that Adam had done, like to me that is fascinating. Anytime we watch a film or a show or whatever, I really gravitate towards something, and 9 times out of 10, if I go, that looks really cool, also to be like, well, you know how they did that. And like this happened with like The Fifth Element, and you're like, you know, most of that's practical effects, right? I'm like, no, and I'm like, that explains why it still looks good 30 years later.
Because they use real stuff.
Yeah, and there were makers and crafters making that stuff, which I think is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to transition here so we can get towards the Death Redesigns creation and Steel Rift. But as we segue here, because I think some of this will make a little bit of sense. So when you approach creating a thing or painting, do you have a particular workflow in mind, or you just do stuff?
It depends on what the needed outcome is. If I'm just doing it for fun, a lot of times I'll just jump in and do whatever until I think it's done, and then I stop.
I say that too, and people ask me about painting. I'm like, I just smear the paint till it looks good, which sounds awful, but if you watch me, if it doesn't look good, I just grab more paint and I just do more stuff until it doesn't look like crap.
If I'm working on something that's going to be a product photo, right, I have a plan ahead of time. Like I know that I need to, think carefully about what the composition is going to be like. Is this going to be in a book? What kind of backgrounds are we likely to photograph it on? What kind of other miniatures are we probably going to photograph it with? Do I need to have similar basing so that they match in photos? Also, just, if it's just for an ad or something, I'm going to use more striking color combinations to try to grab people's eye, as opposed to what I normally end up doing, which is a lot more subtle and subdued colors, just because I like realism. But, if I'm going to do something for an ad, I'm going to have it be real punchy colors, just so that it stands out on the page. I guess outside of hobby things, some projects need some planning. Like, I've recently started doing some Gundam stuff again, and those are projects that I have to stop and think and plan. I want to do a lot of things with it, and if I'm going to execute them cleanly, I have to think about it ahead of time. But if I'm just grabbing some stuff to paint, I'm going to paint a new kill team, whatever, let's just start slapping paint on there and we'll get it done. Yeah.
Do you feel like, and this is a loaded question, but do you feel like your education with film photography and stuff has helped with the business? Beyond the video, like YouTube, but business stuff?
Yeah, I think just an understanding of how lighting and light and photography works has made it possible for us to get good photos of things. And, if you're, especially when you're selling things online, the difference between, I can see these buildings you got over here, they look great,
But you can pick it up and physically touch it.
Yeah, this looks nice, good weathering, good transitions, looks clean, everything's great. But if I need to tell someone online, hey, this is a really cool looking kit, we need to be able to take a decent photo of it to represent, what does this look like? To be enticing.
The photo's bad, you might not even know there's acrylic windows.
Sure.
Trying to know what's in it, it makes sense. Trying to capture it on the picture.
I think that as a communication tool, it has been very helpful in just communicating to customers hey, this is the product, this is what it looks like in real life, and it's cool, and you should buy it.
One of the benefits of working at DRD is sometimes I get to use DRD equipment for things I want to do, and not particularly adept at photography. Usually I'll come in and I was like, here are the lights probably where they were left, here's the camera with the settings that were on it, and last time Austin took photos in this specific spot, it worked. If I put the model right there, it's probably going to turn out good. But when I come in and Austin's like, let me show you, you need to be like this, and you need to get here, and you got to zoom in, and f-stop, and ISO, and whatever. I'm like, that's cool. Kind of just push the button. But he knows a lot of the stuff, and so, I say that in jest because it's a little funny, but some of that's rubbed off, trying to understand shutter speed and then the f-stop and whatnot. The f-stop is not shutter speed, right?
It is not.
Okay, yeah, because one's the...
f-stop is the aperture.
Yeah, the aperture, and the other one is how fast the thing does the deal.
How long it stays open.
Yeah, and then the tighter the aperture is, the more light you need, and right?
Correct.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be super dark. So I learned a little bit of these things, but he uses that all the time, just does it. So that's fascinating for me. Also, I'll bring in a mini, and I'll think it looks pretty all right. And then you take the photo, it's like, shit, That looks real good. So if you got a good looking mini, good photography is just going to make that mini look better.
Yeah.
The one downside to photography with minis is you'll find stuff you missed.
Yeah. Mold lines, spots you missed painting.
We're like, let's take a product photo. You're like, one of my beard hairs is also stuck in the paint. Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so transitioning over here, I think this might be an interesting topic to segue into Deity creation and then also Steel Rift. Do you have like a favorite war game you have played that might have influenced what you do? And then how do you feel like you might have segued into today your interest? Because I know you're doing Kill Team, and I feel like the last few years a lot of your interest has been more on the board game side. And like kind of seeing what you liked and what you like now and how you got to that.
Well, I mean, when we started out, I played a lot of 40K. And part of that was because it was the game that had my attention, and part of it was because it was the game that had a lot of people's attention, and if we were going to make terrain or accessories or things, we needed to do it for the largest market possible.
Yeah.
I would say these days I am far more engaged with smaller games. That is to say, like skirmish games. Full-scale army games, I don't get excited for those as much anymore. Just the level of commitment that you have to have both financially and just time to play as well.
Yep.
It's more than what I've got to give.
Yeah.
So I like focusing on things that are more of a shorter engagement type thing, a thing that you could pick up, paint over a weekend, and games that you can play in under an hour. I mean, Steel Rift is a little, it kind of scope creeped out of the like extra special short into like just reasonably short, but like
still a nice and low model count though. Like you know, probably not going to have more than 10 models. Average force probably about 7 right now. So like that's really not too daunting. When I look at 40K right now, if I want to get back into it,
you need like scores of models.
Yeah, if I'm not playing Space Marines, because those could be a bunch, but if I'm playing like Tyranids, which is one extreme, or Orcs, or even Guardsmen, any
Hundreds.
of those, and I'm just like, do I want to build this? Even Adam, one of our coworkers, he was talking about like just the slog to get through some of the Tyranid like basic gaunts or whatever the hell they were. He had a good time, like all these good stories and bringing in, showing us stuff for the big creatures. Then they got to those and you're just like, I just gotta get it done. And then I'm just like, no.
I feel like there was at some point that he was talking about like just 3D printing the gaunts and stuff just so that he didn't have to assemble them.
I can see that too.
Yeah, because like it was getting real tedious. I think this is like the third time he's built a Tyranid army too.
So that's kind of war game part. Like board game though, transition to that. What is it about board games you like, and like what's one game now that like really resonates with you? It's like if you're gonna grab a game right now, it's Friday Night Gaming. What game are you probably gonna be like? If no one picks one, I'm gonna play that.
So some of the stuff that really gets my attention when it comes to board games is legacy board games. I love a legacy board game just because with our game group, we have a tendency to play a game, forget about it, come back 6 months later, maybe play it one more time. With a legacy game, there is if you're not familiar, it's basically like a campaign play thing,
like a
where
living
like
game.
You change the game bit by bit. Like this is the type of game where like an event happens and you do the event and then you tear the card up and you throw it away.
So Risk and Pandemic are the two I know of immediately.
So there's Risk Legacy. That was, I think, the first major one. Pandemic Legacy, there were 3 versions. There was Season 1, 2, and then 0. There was Betrayal at House on the Hill Legacy, which I think was just shortened to Betrayal Legacy. That was a phenomenal game. Betrayal Legacy, if you can find a copy of it, get it. Is amazing, but it is out of print. So like the fact that it is consumable
rough for a legacy, consumable. So once you make a change, it's changed.
Yeah. Like I think that the last time I saw it was like $300 a copy. Yeah, I've still got my copy, and you can still play it. It just once you get past like game 12 or whatever it is, it's locked in. But for me, that means that like I can coerce my gaming group into playing 12 times on a single game, which is like nice.
And if it's not $300, that's a good investment. If it's $300, it's like
Yeah, when I bought it, I think it was like $50 or $60.
Yeah, pennies at that point.
Yeah. So I really like legacy games. We picked up Charterstone recently. That is the most recent legacy game that we found. I also have found that I've started to like, maybe this is like I'm getting to be an old man, but I like worker placement games. So like,
they're very popular. Is Ticket to Ride a worker placement kind of game? Because I know that's very popular.
I don't know if that qualifies as a
What's that train one with the coal you were doing?
Oh, that's Brass Birmingham, and that is a worker placement
Okay,
game.
yeah, there we go.
That
So I
one
was thinking
is
tickets and riding. I know that's a
yeah.
popular game, but like I was
That
thinking of
was
the train one you had.
yeah. I don't have that one, but one of the guys in our group does. Brass Birmingham, excellent. Dune Imperium. It is the most unassuming, uninteresting looking components, but the gameplay's phenomenal. It's really fun and really well made.
Interesting. I haven't heard of this one, and like it's Dune.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is a game that focuses on sort of the like army battles between the houses and fighting over Arrakis and everything, but. It's like all the components, like, you know, you got all these exciting, like, oh, there's miniatures and all these cool little coins and things in these other games. Now it's just like, it's wooden meeples. It's just different color wooden meeples and different color wooden cubes. And like, that shouldn't deter you from like a good fun game, but like, it's also not going to draw you in. So unless you're like, I know this game is good because I read a really great review on Board Game Geek or something, and I'm really into Dune, you might not give it a second look.
Yeah, the cover of that book might not be enticing.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I'm getting to where I like worker placement games a lot, and legacy games are really fun. Those are the types of games that I would love to have more of.
Yep. So at this point, we've gone through Austin's life, hobby things, lots of variety of stuff, and then right there we've ended on kind of like war game stuff, board game stuff. Let's get into kind of the peak of the conversation for people who are interested. Like, how did DRD come to be? Transitioning from Brush for Hire to DRD, what was that? What were your thoughts then versus what it is now? Because it's very different.
Sure. So at some point, one of the guys who is still working here, Adam, came to me and said, "Hey, what would you think about like making tokens? Like, would you ever be interested in like a business where we were making like accessories and things for games?" And I said, maybe. I mean, how would we do that? And he was like, "Well, laser cutter." And I was like, "Well, I ain't got laser cutter money." And
I ain't got a laser cutter money.
I'm a simple man, a simple paint. So he said, "Well, you know, what if we basically work together, got a laser cutter?" Like he was like, I'll put the money up for the laser cutter. I expect to be paid back for it, but you know, basically, I'll front the money for a laser cutter and you know, give me a stake in the company. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So we did that, and we kept that laser cutter for, I think it was like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like we spent thousands of dollars on a laser cutter and then got to a place where we were already like needing something better in like 4 weeks. So we did a bunch of prototyping. We figured out what our limitations were, how to run the thing, and then immediately turned around and said, okay, this is where Kickstarter, which was still kind of in its infancy at the time, could help. So we made a plan, made some terrain stuff.
Most of which does not exist today.
Most of which does not, we do not sell anymore because it was, in retrospect, really simplistic and janky and bad. But, you know, it was cool enough at the time that people were like, hey, that's neat. You know, I'll throw a couple bucks at that. And so we used that money, and I think we raised, you know, a few $1,000s or something like that on the Kickstarter.
The first one.
Yeah, on the yeah. And I basically took some of my own money and matched it, and we bought our first like actual like production laser cutter. All of our laser cutters we named after King of the Hill characters. The first one was Cotton, who has actually sorry, the very first one is Bobby, the like cheapo first one we got, and then the first industrial one was Cotton because it was white and kind of short and stumpy. And we ran that one for a couple of years, and then at some point we kind of like crossed a threshold where it's like, wow, we've really made some improvements in the way that we design terrain. Really like these new designs, and we came up with a couple of new sets and said, you know what, we want to go big here. We want to get some industrial, like some big industrial cutters. So we did a Kickstarter again. And put out Rapid Vanguard and a set called Black Side X. Black Side X was our first modular set, and Rapid Vanguard was heavily influenced by the original Dawn of War video game. We took a lot of the same sorts of aesthetics and just made things that kind of fit into the same silhouette. And
This is when we had also transitioned here, I think. Yeah.
so when that Kickstarter was funded, that's when we moved to our new location.
Because I was gonna say I don't recall that big laser ever being in the garage.
No,
Because we
it
started
certainly wasn't.
literally DRD was in a garage with a pipe running out of the front door there, laser cutting.
Yeah.
You could see it from the road. Like mailman comes up, Adam could be in there just packing tokens.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, we got 2 giant double head laser cutters and moved out to the middle of nowhere into a warehouse on an old tobacco farm. And
There's cows like 100 yards away from us. We're
Yeah.
not kidding.
they,
Unassuming.
and from there, we made new kits. We kept expanding. At some point, I think was it before or during the pandemic that we got into 3D printing? I mean, like we had a 3D printer before. But,
I
like, we
think
didn't
it was
use
just.
much.
I think it was just before because we had that Form Labs that we didn't do much with, and then I think right before the pandemic, I think we were doing a lot of stuff for Bobby. I thought, were we doing that?
I feel like it was either right before or during. I honestly don't remember. Anyway, point is, sometime around 2020, we got into 3D printing. I'd wanted to.
Do you remember when? Because the first BattleTech Kickstarter, Clan Invasion, that
Right.
was pre 2020.
So
and then-
it was the first release for BattleTech stuff that was like the new things.
Is Game of
was
Armor Combat.
2019 at Adepticon was when they released Game of Armor Combat.
Well, so I had. I'm pretty sure I had my Clan Invasion stuff before 2020. Because I know that we had Game Armor Combat, because I was still out here doing streaming stuff. So I think that the fulfillment for that might have been 2019, because you guys brought me back stuff from Adepticon when I was streaming out here, which would have been like 2016, 2017, because I still had the rig in the back room. Then
Was
they
it
did,
really that early?
yeah, because the Game Armor Combat came out, and then it ran out of stock. That one wasn't a Kickstarter.
Okay.
Then they did Clan Invasion Kickstarter. Bobby took that money and started Fortress. So I think we probably picked up Fortress's stuff right around 18 or 19. So I think it was right before
Okay.
pandemic. Pandemic hit, and then minis really blew up, and we started diving in. I think
Yeah.
somewhere around there, because I know the big foray for us, because the Form Labs was out the window,
Yeah.
ended up being the stuff for Bobby. Because like between Joe and you and myself, we were all like super into BattleTech, and they didn't have a lot of like third-party stuff. I think that was actually Joe that got us connected with Fortress.
Yeah,
Then we
it
started
was.
printing, and I reached out to Aries, and then we ended up picking up him.
Yeah.
So somewhere in there, and I think a lot of the 3D stuff probably started with Bobby.
Yeah.
And then you made a few mechs for him, and then I think that turned into making some interesting stuff you wanted to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, carry on. Sorry,
Yeah,
we were
that's
getting our chronological stuff going.
Anyway, whatever it was, sometime around 2020, 2018 to 2020, we started doing 3D printed miniatures, a lot of 6 mil stuff. And then the next big leap was working with Ash, who we've been working with for years on various collab projects and things.
We've done a lot of stuff for his games, like Gamma Wolves, Last Days, whatever. Yeah.
We talked to him about writing some rules, and he wrote us a core rule set and the first expansion, which got released at subsequent Adepticons. I think, what was the first Adepticon back after COVID? Was that 2022?
I think it was 2022.
Because I think that we released. Yeah, that makes sense then. So 2022, we released the white box, like initial release Steel Rift boxes. Then 2023, we released all of the stuff for Burning Horizons, and then 2024 we had Close Quarters.
Yeah.
The progress of going from we don't have any books, it's all digital, to we brought books but found that we have a horrible misprint, to finally the third year we got it right and actually had books that were correct and usable. Still makes me chuckle a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole process was a learning curve. It was the first game that we've ever published, and it's been a lot of fun and a lot of headaches, and it's just a lot.
It's gone beyond simply just like a fun project that makes a little bit of money too, because there's a lot of big boy things we've been discussing, like future of the company, other products to develop in the IP. We've talked about like some book ideas, and then we've talked about expansions, and then like compilation books. There's a lot of different things, pokers in the fire, so to speak. So like
Other games
yeah, other games. So we haven't just
in the same universe.
same universe. So think one of the topics or ways that I envision how we approach Steel Rift as an IP with games is like, if you think of Games Workshop with like Warhammer and Kill Team and Epic and Battlefleet Gothic, all of that is in the same universe, different types of games. Yeah. So we've kind of been looking at stuff like that, but it wasn't a one and done. So we've been kind of developing an IP or seeing where we want it to go, right, which is kind of scary, but also like very businessy. Like we aren't just making a game and being like, oh, done, we made this cool thing. It's like, no, like we want this game to like be alive and going, and that's interesting because some of the discussions, sometimes heated, sometimes not. Like we're approaching it as like businessmen as well, not just like creators. So it's interesting to see how we kind of shifted into this is the thing we have to do if we want this game to be profitable and exist. Yeah. So.
Yep, it's a fine line. Yep. I mean, outside of a few sort of lightning in a bottle type things, most games have to fight and scrimp and scrape for their existence. Yeah. And fortunately, we have a lot of other things going on that allow us the room and the cushion to continue to develop Steel Rift without having to worry about like every single thing making money immediately. Yeah.
So kind of a slow burn.
Yeah.
So with Steel Rift, having talked about things you liked with other board games and stuff, with the current rules, and then us taking more of a hands-on approach to creating expansion rules, is there elements from war games that you like that you see in Steel Rift or would want to see, or board game mechanics where you're like, this kind of melds a lot of the things you like into the game?
I mean, aside from basic concepts of war games that you'd see in Steel Rift, like things have hit points, and there's two different kinds of hit points. There's armor and there's structure.
Yeah.
I think outside of like those sort of basic things, I can't necessarily point at a specific game that I'm like, we took inspiration for this mechanic from here or what have you. It's kind of an oddball game. It kind of reminds me maybe of like old weird like Steve Jackson stuff at times, where like you've got
made Munchkin, right?
Yeah. That's not what I'm thinking about though. Actually, who made Car Wars?
That I do not remember.
But it's stuff like that where it's like there's a lot of opportunity to do customization and really like tweak things and say like, okay, I really want this guy to be able to do X, Y, and Z, so I gotta like really, scrimp on a particular aspect of it. Like I gotta drop the armor down really low so I can get this extra gun on here because I want to be able to do this thing, or I can't take this gun because I need jump jets and directional thrusters to get this thing, accomplished. I really like having the opportunity to do a more in-depth sort of customization during list building, but then that customization doesn't affect how quickly the game actually plays. Yeah. It's like once you have your units created, it's not any harder or slower to actually play the game. Yeah. It just gives you an opportunity to do something fun with the game, even when you're not playing the game. Yeah. Because I remember, like, what was it, MechWarrior 4 or something? I probably spent like as much time in that video game in the mech bay customizing and tweaking and fine tuning and being like, ooh, I wonder if I could get this to do this. Can I fit this in here if I like take out this heat sink, Yeah. And that kind of stuff was really fun because you spend some time tweaking and fine tuning, and then you're like, all right, time to go on a mission and see how this turns out. Oh, that did not go well. Back to the mech bay. Like
so when you translate that to the tabletop, you've got like classic BattleTech, which you can do that. But that is ultra crunchy. Yeah. So like with our game, you have some ways to customize without it needing a PhD to figure out how to do it. Not trying to sling too much shade at Classic because I like BattleTech, but that is kind of the way it is.
It's just really involved. Like there's nothing wrong with it. There's plenty of people who enjoy that level of detail, and power to them. But like if you want to have fun customizing a thing and then play a quick game with it to see how it performs, Classic is not that quick game.
No. And anyone who tells you that is either super familiar and have done it a lot, or they're lying.
Yeah, they're just desperate for someone to play with.
Yeah, we get that all the time. Where like even classic grogs that I know that really like Classic, when I talk to them about it, they're like, Yeah, those people that tell you they can play a standard game of Classic in like a tournament setting in like under an hour, they're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, no. There are a few things I've seen where they speed stuff up, but in general, no.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Steel Rift creating the HEVs on paper with or with like a pencil paper isn't the easiest thing, which we've addressed some ideas on how we can improve that. But we are working on a list builder, and that thing is super easy. Where it's like you just click the stuff you want, print it out, and you're done. Which hopefully at some point that'll be available for you guys as well.
Yeah, I got some things I need to do to pretty it up, but yeah.
Raw functionality already just blasting my skirt up, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Our boy Calvin did a great job on it.
Javasuka.
Yep.
He's in the channel too.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we've covered pretty much everything. We got the creation of DRD and the creation of Steel Rift. We've kind of hinted at some ideas of things we would like to be doing with Steel Rift, reiterating a little bit of that, other game ideas and book ideas. We've even gone so far as to talk to some authors about prospects of like short story kind of things. Nothing set in stone, but we are looking at opportunities to grow and enhance Steel Rift, which is really exciting. But as we kind of wrap things up here, is there anything you would like to say to the people who may or may not be listening? Any advice or just anything you would want to end on? Because there's a lot of things. I'll give an example. Yesterday, I did a podcast with Mike, and he said something to me that really resonated.
What's that?
And he was talking about how he gets through life. And I was thinking that like we talk about painting and mental health because he was an Army vet. That's not where the conversation went. But he's got a 3 rules approach to life. And he's like, this is why I don't stress. And he goes, if some situation comes up that might stress someone out, I ask myself 3 questions. Is it something I can fix right now? If yes, I fix it and we're done. Is it something I can't fix right now, but I can fix it? If so, don't worry about it. Fix it when I can fix it. Is it something I can't fix and I can't do anything about it? Don't worry about it. And he's like, that I go through that, and almost everything in life goes through that. And I was like, that's solid, real, like it makes sense advice. But if you have anything you want to like throw at people, because with second example, one of the things at work that I struggle with here is sometimes like having the confidence to try a thing, and you approach it as like, I'm Daddy Austin, try the thing. So that is good advice. But if there's anything that you could impart upon the people who are listening from painting, creating, whatever, something you think might be a good, like, if you got nothing else from this, here's that seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it just there, like, and we talked about it before, but like one of the best ways to improve on just about anything is don't be afraid to fail. Failure is just you figuring out what not to do next time. Like if you can fail in a safe way that is not going to hurt you, hurt something else, financially destroy you, don't be afraid to try something. I mean, the worst thing that happens is you learn, like my process, I guess, for thinking about almost any kind of situation is, if I'm having a disagreement with someone else or myself, trying to figure out a solution to a problem, like there's only 2 outcomes in my mind. One is I'm right, or the other one is I learned something. Like if you can take that kind of mentality to other things in your life and just say, you didn't fail, you learned something. Obviously, I'll restate again, don't hurt yourself. Don't do something.
Don't burn down your house.
Yeah. But like, give yourself permission to fail at things. It's okay. You don't have to advertise your failures. You can do it in a setting where only you failed at something. But don't be so afraid of it that you don't try something that could be fun or could be helpful or beneficial.
It's one of those. So a lot of what you just said is something I mentioned a few days ago in a video too, which is good that someone else also has a similar sentiment. But I use the term like can't, never, could, and it sounds super cliche, but it's that thing. Don't let your fear of failure stop you from actually embarking on a journey, because like you might actually get good at something. When I see people who talk about painting, they're like, man, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, you could. Just do it. Doesn't mean you have to be good at it immediately. Just try. And yesterday, Mike was talking to me, and he goes, man, if I hadn't quit painting 10 years ago, where would I be today? And I'm like, exactly. Like, so if you want to do a thing, you're not going to get good at it by not doing it. So
I mean, that's what happened with, doing 3D sculpting. Like, I was not good at it at first. It took me 2 years to get to a point with, I use Fusion 360 for all of our sculpting for the most part, a little bit of Blender. But it took me 2 years of like trying it, getting frustrated, walking away, forgetting what I learned, coming back, trying again, failing, being frustrated, walking away, forgetting what I learned. till I finally said, you know what, I'm not gonna walk away until I figured something out. Until I get something that I like, I'm not going to stop doing this. And I did it a little bit every day until the tool clicked, you know, until it got to a place where it's like, oh, I understand. I figure it's kind of the same as like learning a new language, where it's like at some point you're like, oh, I understood that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Coming from someone who's been doing Babel for how long?
It's not Babbel.
What's it called?
I'm doing what is it? The one with the owl? Duolingo.
Yeah. So I recognize that one too. So same kind of thing. Final thing on Austin's point there. We are in a day and age where we have a supercomputer. Most of you are watching this in your pocket. And if you want to learn a thing, there's probably resources online too. Like with Austin learning Fusion 360, if you didn't know a thing, it's
YouTube,
a Google
man.
YouTube video away, and then they show him, and he's like, "Oh shit, I know how that tool worked." Oh, aha moment, and that integrates to this tool. So don't be afraid to look something up. Don't be afraid to fail. I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
So that said, I think we have covered everything. I think that was good. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe. If you want to follow Austin on socials, that's also the same ones for me, sort of. So Death Ray Designs on Instagram. If you message us, it's probably me, but that's the DRD one. And then Death Ray Designs on Facebook, and then obviously our website where you can buy all the things.
Also hit us up on Discord. Come join our Discord.
Yes,
DeathRayDesigns.com/Discord. 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 Get it. Come at.
I remember to edit it where it's like, that'd be very funny. That's true. That
We're very active there, and that if you want to like have a conversation with me or Justin or any of our other people that we hang out with and get inspired by and talk to and bounce ideas off of, come be one of those people. Come talk to us.
Also, this is not a Discord. We're just like the handful of people who work at DRD just want you to come in. Like there are discussions that happen that I never even see until well after the fact, where it's just threads of stuff. I'm like, I'm not even going to try and read it. In particular, right now, still Rift in our Discord has kind of started to blow up with people talking. But Battletech's got a big one. We got some 40K people that talk, even though at DRD we're not doing as much 40K these days. And then yesterday, I feel like I saw someone who was talking about mercs, which is kind of been quiet for a little while. Yeah. So there's probably someone there to talk to, and if you're interested in at least the hobby side, you're going to get a lot of engagement there. So it's a good place to be.
Yeah, come post your pictures of whatever kind of hobby project you're working on.
Yep. Also, let's reiterate finally, buy stuff, because if you buy things at DRD, we can eat and business goes well. So
I mean, Steel Rift is pretty straightforward to get into. Grab a faction box or a starter box. You can also check out the quick start rules on steelrift.com/downloads. If you just want a quick rundown, I think Ash also has some videos. Honestly, we need to do some more videos because like the stuff that Ash has up there is so outdated. It doesn't have any of the expansion stuff in it. So anyway.
And if you're into 40K, 1, 2, 3 GTs, the closest thing we had to lightning in the bottle in the last year and a half or so. And if you are a tournament player 40K, you will love it, and you will thank me for it.
It's cheap,
it's
good, it works.
Yep, and your TO or your shop owner will love you because it is the easiest way to get tournament-ready stuff on the table quickly. Yeah. So if
you're a tournament organizer or a shop owner, also hit us up. We got wholesale accounts and TO discounts. Get it this guy, Justin at deathraydesigns.com.
Justin at deathraydesigns.com.
Put it in the comments.
In the comments.
Get in the comments.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. Again, if you enjoyed this, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe. And as always, keep painting your models, keep rolling your dice, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye. If you made it this far, you're probably a viewer that already hits that like button when you see a video come up. You're probably already a subscriber, and you probably jump into the comments down below to help support the channel, to help support that algorithm. But if you're looking for some other ways to help support the channel too, make sure you check the description down below. Maybe you want to pick up some paints from Monument Hobbies. That's my paint of choice. The Pro Acrylic line is chef's kiss, good stuff. Maybe you want to check out some of the offerings from Death Ray Designs, where I work in my day job. We got plenty of 3D printed products, as well as MDF terrain, some of the stuff that I have designed myself and we play with here on the channel. And if you're looking to bolster your Battletech ranks, miniatures, and offerings, make sure you check out Bobby from Fortress Miniatures and Games. He's one of the main supporters of the channel as well, and supporting any of these companies helps support what I do and helps to ensure that I can continue to bring content to all of you. If you want to become a super supporter, I highly recommend you guys check out the Patreon. You guys get that extra little edge to help push seek more content out, and I really do appreciate that. And my ultimate goal on the channel is to continue to be able to not only put out the content we have now, but to get to a point where you can put out more content later, whether that be battle reports or painting tutorials or just more rambles, anything at all. I'd like to be doing more content for you. This is something that I enjoy. I like being able to cast a light into the darkness to bring a little bit of hobby positivity to all of you and make you feel good, and also enjoy playing games myself. As we do the final sign off here though, I do want to go ahead and switch on over and do the scroll of awesome to showcase all the Patreon supporters, the super supporters of the channel, to give them some recognition for helping support what I do. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you guys next time.